go back to open session, I'd like you to please rise and join me with Pledge Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Evening, everyone. Sorry to keep you waiting. I have a few announcements. The last day to register to vote for the December 5th, 2017 special state Senate election is Friday, November 17th. Nope, I'm sorry, it's Wednesday, November 15th. The last date to register to vote for the November 28th special town election is Friday, November 17th. And you can register to vote between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the town clerk's office. The special town meeting will be held Tuesday, November 28th at 7 p.m. in the Middle High School auditorium, and the special state Senate election will be held Tuesday, December 5th at the T.C. Passios building. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. One other announcement, we have a Lunenburg business meeting to promote the local economy scheduled for Monday, November 13th, 2017 at 9:30 a.m. Here in Town Hall. And any interested businesses can attend that meeting. And the town of Lunenburg is interested in forming a partnership with its local businesses to enhance economic development. This is the second of these input meetings, and we'd like to hear from Lunenburg business owners and/or representatives of businesses. Of course, it's also open to the public. Is there any public comment from the board?
Yes, I wanted to mention that this year, prior to the town meeting on the 28th, the marching band is going to play at 6:30 and 6:45. They're going to play either in the auditorium or outside, whichever weather permitting. The town moderator wants to make sure that town meeting will begin promptly at 7, so scoot on in after you listen to the marching band. Join us for town meeting. The Lions Club Pancake Breakfast will be held tomorrow morning at the Senior Center from 8 to 10:30.
The polls are open from 7:25 until 8 p.m. tonight if you haven't voted for the special election primary.
Okay. Is there any public comment from the public? Please.
Thank you. Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue, coming before you as a member of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club to remind everybody that the third annual Rockin' Auction is going to happen on Saturday, November 18th at 7 p.m. at the Leominster Eagles Club, which is 456 Litchfield, Leominster. It is going to feature the live music of the Glue Factory. And of course, we will have our usual auction items, silent and live auction items, Chinese auction items, 50/50 raffle, and there will be food samplings from local area restaurants, including Ixtapa Cantina, Dario's, Ugly Omelet, Bad Larry's, and Dragonfly Cafe. Hopefully, we're going to be adding a few more extras to that list by not this Saturday, but next Saturday. It is $20 a person, $35 a couple. You can order the tickets online or you can buy them at the door, and there will be a cash bar. For those of you who have been there, you know what a good time it is. It's a lot of fun. It's for a great cause. There are a lot of great items for sale. There's Patriots tickets. There's 2 sets of Patriots tickets. There's a brand new paddleboard. I know it's past the season, but it's time to prepare for next season. And there's items from all different places, gift certificates for different items. There's an autographed baseball from the Red Sox, so I can't remember the member off the top of my head who was signed from. Lots of great things, Christmas trees that are being auctioned, etc. You can find more about it at the website, bgcluboflunenburg.org, and I have 6 postcards for the board and the town manager.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the public? Okay. We'll begin with our 7:05 appointment, which is a public hearing. The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 7th, 2017, at 7:05 PM at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, second floor, Lunenburg, on the application submitted by Global Montello Group Corporation, doing business as Honey Farms number 3829, for the transfer of alcohol license 00046-PK0636 for package store wine and malt, and a change of manager located at 134 Leominster Shirley Road. The premises is described as a convenience store with 2 rear exits, 1 entrance exit in the front of the store, 2 restrooms in rear, beer and wine cooler to the left of the transaction counter. This is the Lunenburg Licensing Authority. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you tell us who you are?
Of course. My name is Rashi Manglik. I'm with McDermott, Quilty and Miller. And with me is Heidi Smith. She is the proposed manager of record for this location.
Great.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this is a corp-to-corp transfer of the convenience store and gas station, as well as a change of manager and record. Global Montello has acquired over 30 locations of Honey Farms in Massachusetts, 3 of which hold retail licensed package stores, and which we are transferring to Global tonight. Heidi has over 10 years of experience in managing convenience stores. The hours currently of this location will not change and will be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. for liquor sales Monday through Saturday, and Sunday 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. There will be no change to any day-to-day operations or training.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I would make a motion that we approve the transfer of license as requested.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Half the audience. Gets rid of half the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next appointment is for 7:10. It's for a peddler's license application for Paul Schlebeck for Edward Jones. Now, correct me on the pronunciation of
It's
your name.
Klebachek.
Thank you.
So you weren't too bad right there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you tell us what you're trying to accomplish?
Sure. So my name is Paulie Klebachek. I work for Edward Jones. We are one of the largest investment firms in the world. I'm a financial advisor, so basically looking to potentially open a business in the area. So one thing we like to do as a firm is, kind of in good faith, meet with the town, even though kind of one of our business model is we really pride ourselves on the face-to-face interaction with our clients and prospective clients instead of, just kind of, call-in number. So, part of our prospecting is going around introducing ourselves in the neighborhood. So, the peddler's license is just to kind of take care of that aspect as far as being able to, go from street to street and let people know my intent. And if they have any questions, I take it from there.
Any questions or comments from the board?
This is usually reviewed by the police chief, yes?
Yes.
Do we have that review?
I'm just looking.
Did you sign these?
Yeah. Yes, and Corey is part of that check, and that came back good.
Okay. The other thing I think the police chief asks if whenever you're going out door to door to make sure they let them know so that when they
Always
get the
check
phone
in.
call, they understand.
Sure.
I would make a motion, we approve the peddler's license as requested.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Too. Okay, we have some appointments this evening. We have 3 appointments to the Cultural Council. Chris Letarte, Minna Schulten, Mina Schulten, and Laura Ford Kelly. Are they, any of them here tonight? Would you come up, please? Great. Why don't you take turns and tell us who you are and why you want to be on the Cultural Council?
I'm in the middle. My name is Mina Schulten. I moved to Lunenburg with my family about a year ago now. We live on Oak Ave. And I just wanted to get more involved in town. Cultural events are, I think, just part of the vibrancy of a town, and I just wanted to have a little bit of input as to what that looks like here. I also, so we live in Janet Cragen's old house, and I didn't know her, but I understand she was really involved in the arts scene and the theater scene around town, and so that feels really good to sort of carry on a little bit of that legacy. And I'm also a food person. I'm a dietitian, nutritionist, and I think food really brings people together, so I'd love to organize some events around food in this community, especially since we're an agricultural town. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Ford Kelly, and much like Nina, I moved to the town not so long ago, and I have small children, and I just thought this would be a great way to start getting involved in the town. So, that's big.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. Chris Letarte, 283 Whalum Road. I don't have a lot to say. Local artist. I work for myself, BFA in illustration from Montserrat College of Art. I've done everything from galleries to been in books, and there's hundreds, maybe 1,000 pieces that I've done in the last 6 years out across the state. So I've been an artist my whole life, and I'm just interested in being on a board and digging in and finding out what kind of things we can do and what grants are available from the state and what we can do more of as opposed to the small amount that has been done so far. As I've been told, I don't know a whole lot. So it's a learning process. That's it.
A note that we have received the 3 talent bank applications from all the applicants. I'd make a motion that we approve the appointment of all 3 candidates.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'd just like to thank the 3 candidates for coming forward. It's excellent to see. All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. So the process is to see the town clerk and get sworn in. Okay? Thank you very much.
During our
Anytime.
office hours.
Yeah. We have an appointment for the Zoning Board of Appeals, Robert Cato. Yes. Sir. Mr. Cato, would you tell us who you are and why you want to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Sure. Robert Cato. I'm fairly new to Lunenburg last May. Before that, we lived in Groton for 25 years, and I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals there for probably 20 of them, and chairman for several, like maybe 4 or 5. But I enjoyed that work, and so I wanted to continue on the Groton board, but they said I had to be a resident.
Well, their loss is our gain.
Hopefully.
Any questions?
That remains to be seen, doesn't it?
Well, it's not often that we get a candidate for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We may get somebody who's been on the Planning Board and may have been on other boards, but not somebody from another town with the years of experience on the Zoning Board that you've had. So thank you for coming forward.
Yeah, there shouldn't be, it should be a seamless transition, I hope.
Yeah.
I would make a motion, we approve the appointment of Robert Cadle for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second, and thank you for coming forward.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll just get sworn in and wait to receive something from the board?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we have a appointment to the Personnel Committee. It's a reappointment of Scott Chase, 23 Cushing Lane. Scott is not here this evening. He has a business appointment, but Scott has been re-recruited to join the Personnel Committee. Can I get a motion?
I would make a motion that we reappoint Scott Chase to the Personnel Committee.
Second.
So the only comment I'll make is that
The reappointment.
he used the talent bank application as opposed to the reappointment form for filling out. So the personnel person used the wrong personnel form.
Well, his term expired and he did not renew,
Ah, okay, so he's
but he
technically
was
new.
re-recruited. But
Good job.
I'll make a note of that.
I mean, he also spoke at town meeting on one
That's
of the
correct.
personnel, so he's certainly known to us as far as
Right.
the thing, so it's not that he's unknown, but we just want to make sure we have that form for somebody that's coming back to say, what do you think you need to improve, or what are the good things about the committee you're going to go on?
So did I have a motion?
Yes,
And
there
a
was
second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great.
Now we have the town manager report.
Okay. Couple things to report on tonight. 842 Chase Road, that is included on the special town meeting warrant as an article to accept the deed for 842 Chase Road in the same manner as if a foreclosure had occurred, and the back taxes would be treated as if it went through the tax title foreclosure process. It was originally thought that this would be treated as an abatement on the back taxes, but under Chapter 60, Section 77C, it'll be treated like a tax title foreclosure. Therefore, there will be no effect on the assessor's overlay account. Will be more adjustments on the receivables balance for the fiscal 18 closeout. The Conservation Commission met and will pay for any associated costs with performing a 21E assessment and any closing costs out of one of their trust funds.
I would just question the 21E assessment. I was actually at the Conservation Commission meeting, and Brandon Kibbe from the Open Space Committee is confident that a 21E assessment is not needed for this parcel. And so my question would be, are we going to require one? Because there is no evidence of any kind of issue at that property. Hasn't been any kind of activity there that would trigger a 21E. So is that something we as a community are going to require? Because they specifically talked about closing costs, because Brandon Kibbe is very confident that a 21E assessment is not needed.
I would prefer to have an assessment. It may not have to be a full-blown 21E assessment, but an initial consultation, because that covers the town liability-wise in the long term.
Okay, I just think we may need to get back to the Conservation Commission, because they were going from the assumption that a 21 assessment, I'm sure they're still going to be interested in the property, but they were going from that a 21E assessment wouldn't necessarily be needed.
I can work with the Conservation
And
Commission.
as to the cost, because they talked specifically about the closing costs for the property.
How big is the property?
24 acres, I want to say.
And it's empty, it doesn't have any buildings on it?
No.
Okay,
No.
great.
What will this do to the warrant article? Do we pass over it, or?
No,
No?
you would
Okay.
vote on it.
Okay.
And do
Or
we
the
have an
town would.
idea of the cost of the 21E assessment?
Probably a couple $1,000s. In the session.
Okay.
And are we, I'm just trying to find that article.
Number Number 10.
10. No, it's not. Is it 10? Oh, is this the old warrant? Okay, so can I just see the language on that? Okay, so it is going to go to the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
Good.
Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay. The Town Hall painting project began last week, and Fox Painting has made significant progress, I would say, in a week. As you may have noticed, there's been a significant number of rotten clapboards that have been removed and that will need to be replaced. Due to the extensive rot in both the clapboards and the underlying boards that the clapboards are nailed to, it is likely we will use the entire capital appropriation of $87,750 for this project. The contractor has worked with the DPW seamlessly and has been very professional and clean and leaving the area spotless every day.
Yeah, I noticed driving by that now that it's cleaned up and white, you can see just how big some of the gaps are between the boards, how not straight the building is. And I mean, be good to hear. I know he carried some minor woodwork repair, but I know he's, God bless him for doing it. He's got to be up there making a decision every time he puts paint on a board of whether it's worth putting paint on it or whether he's got to replace it and whether he carried it in his budget to do that work. So it'd be good, I mean, it'd be good to hear some report from him about what he wasn't able to take care of, where issues are, bigger than they appear. Because he's got to be painting some rotten board.
He's been working with the DPW director, so maybe the DPW director, Jack Radoquins, can answer.
Good evening. I don't know that we'll get Sam here to come before the board. His references were impeccable. We were very pleased to get the job as low bidder, significantly lower than we had expected. And as he began, he went into it. He had come 2 or 3 times to look at the project. So he came in with his eyes wide open. I had said from the very beginning, even though I understand the cleanliness of it and the enhanced appearance that, well, there are a number of cliches, shine on a sneaker, and so forth. And when he got into the scraping, it became evident what we all, I think, knew, is that not only were some of the clapboards, or a number of the clapboards rotten, but the sheeting, the full 1-inch boards behind it, had been wet for so long that he had to replace, a great deal of that as well with plywood. And in fact, I brought a piece up to the town manager's office today, and there's some sections you put your fingers literally right through the sheathing, and those are the boards he replaced. He replaced those boards generally at those spots where the nails from the new clapboards would just fall. We all know that there's a lot more to do with this building than painting. He's doing an excellent job. In fact, he's maybe doing too good a job, because as he replaces the trim and the joints and caulks everything, it's going to become very tight. And the moisture that's in there, and that's been the problem with this building for decades, is that the moisture that's between the clapboards and the sheathing and the dripping, even though some of the dripping will be remediated, there's moisture throughout this whole building at the sheathing level, and that's going to be sealed in. So loud and clear, 5 years, 7 years, maybe as many as 9, difficult to say. The paint's going to start popping off it. And please don't be upset with that, but that's because of the condition it's in. It's going to look great for a number of years, and hopefully, personally, I hope that by that time we have the building reuse in place, and whatever's going to happen with this building will be done to a greater degree. Structurally, however, it's sound. As he pulled things off, the moisture, I think it's important to note that the moisture through the 1-inch boards has not detrimentally affected the framing. It's the old post and beam framing, pretty heavy-duty timbers, and although some of them are a little damp, there's no sign of termites or carpenter ants, which you might think of with the moisture, surprisingly enough. So he suggested in 9 or 10 years or so, we all the clapboards should be removed, of course, all the sheathing should be removed. And then we had a discussion about the foundation, and you all know that story.
So, sorry, I was just going to say that the $87,750,000 appropriation was not the bid.
Correct. The bid was
So you do have a
$60,000.
cushion to pay for extra wood over and
Yes.
above what was
Right.
included in the bid.
All the extra got us right to that number,
Yep.
coincidentally.
There was 100 square feet included in the base bid, and then there was a unit price on top of that for replacement for above and beyond that.
Yes, correct. One of the biggest expenses will be the bell tower. He said to me, it's just amazing it hasn't fallen over.
I apologize for my ignorance, but I'd like to understand the cause of the moisture. Do we know what the cause of the moisture in the sheathing
At least
is?
in some place, of course, there's no insulation.
Okay.
Okay, there's no insulation that we're aware of in the building. So it's a framed building, a wood frame building, with very little or no insulation, wood on wood. And what's adding to the moisture most significantly is where the cracks and deterioration in the wood trim itself has let water in.
In between.
This
Okay.
architecture is great. It has, I'm sure in its day, had a beautiful wood trim, almost like shelves at the top. The flashing has separated. Some of the flashing is gone, so those shelves just catch the rain, catch the snow, melts towards the building. A lot of it gets behind the clapboards. The columns, which have separated from the building themselves, have allowed snow and ice, and then, of course, it spreads like a sponge.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's as Jack just said, there's the bulk water from rain and things like that. They get in through openings and not being painted for so long and whatever. But also there's the building science element of it as far as where your insulation is and where your vapor barrier is. And when you have difference in temperature from inside to outside, a dew point is created within a wall, different locations depending on how the building's insulated, how the vapor barrier is set up. So you can actually get condensation forming inside the cavities. A building like this was never meant to be air conditioned in the summertime, so that creates a different condition that the building's not built for. So you'll have, besides water physically getting in from a rainstorm, you have water from the air accumulating inside enclosed spaces.
And in fact, it would be better if it wasn't insulated at all, because then it would dry out from the inside out.
Right.
But that doesn't happen today, so. They did put insulation in the lower levels at some point. You can see the round holes where they drilled it in, but the upper levels.
You would know better than I.
Probably vermiculite or something like that we need to abate.
We don't want to know that.
It's in sorry shape to the frame. I think we all know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Welcome.
Good news next.
Just an update on an item I reported at the last meeting about the Mass Development's Commonwealth Places Grant. I had briefed the board at the last meeting that this grant allows municipalities and nonprofits to run crowdfunding campaigns to improve low to moderate income communities in Mass. Since then, I have found out that Lunenburg would meet the income eligibility according to the Commonwealth Places eligibility map. And I reached out to the sponsor of Wallace Park, because that was the project that I had mentioned, but he was not interested in pursuing this funding source. The town could submit this project as a project request on their own as an optional way to obtain funding for that project.
What are the
Where-
deadlines and the timelines? What's the timeline look for that grant?
There's no deadline per se that we'd have to apply by.
Okay.
But there is, once you do apply, you have 60 days to raise your goal amount.
Okay. So it's a matching grant?
Yes.
Or, okay, so it's a matching grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
How much is it?
It, up to 60,000 they would match, I believe that the total is.
And for Wallace Park, they were looking specifically at how much?
25, I thought?
25 on top of the 12.
Article
on
is
top of the
25,000.
How would we, if we were to pursue it, how would we raise those funds? Would we allocate those funds, or what would be your proposal for that?
No, it's crowdfunding, so it would be from the community.
Okay.
You can have one large sponsor that could donate up to $10,000.
Okay.
So if you had someone in the community that was
Now, is it
benefactor.
cash or is it in kind? Can it be in kind, or is it
Cash.
strictly, it has to be cash?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And just one other announcement, Town Council office hours will be Monday, November 13th, from 3 to 7 p.m., and he will be meeting with the planning board that same evening, and then again on November 27th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Skipped over complete streets. You wanted to do that?
Oh, sorry. No.
Okay.
One other thing, Complete Streets funding for our prioritization plan. Due to the town's score on the Complete Streets policy, the town was eligible to apply for up to $50,000 in technical assistance from Mass DOT. The town submitted a request for this funding based on a proposal submitted by our consultant, Woodard and Curran, and we received an award of $37,943.30. The funding will pay for consulting services for Wood and Curran to create a complete streets project prioritization plan, and will include evaluating existing town documents such as our capital plan, our open space plan, pavement management plan, crash data, and other town resources, as well as workshops with relevant town employees, public outreach process using surveys, charrettes, and on-site walks. The DPW director and I had our initial meeting with Woodard and Curran this week, and we'll be coordinating a meeting with town employees shortly. And then once a time frame is set for the public outreach portion, we'll notify and make sure that's advertised and announced at multiple meetings. Now I'm all set.
Great. Old business, just a review again of our Board of Selectmen goals, and we're going to spend some time on one of them in this evening's workshop. Our current business, item number 1, is the policy governing disturbances to newly paved roads and the fee schedule, which is the outstanding item on that.
Okay. I would ask the DPW director, Jack Radquins, to come up.
Hello again. I believe this is the final element of this ongoing task to put into place a policy, 5-year moratorium, no excavation in newly paved roads. We've actually already put that into place, or you have. And the final element of that is the fee schedule. As I said last time, changed them slightly. For a lateral cut into the new pavement, be it halfway into the road, portion of the road, or full curb to curb, determined that fee would be $100. For longitudinal cuts, which would be much more invasive, and up to 500 feet, I feel that fee would be $250, and in excess of 500 feet on the longitudinal cut would be $350. The fee is primarily or specifically for administrative review and field inspections.
And the applicant would still be responsible for restoring the road
Yes,
At
and
their
that's
cost.
spelled out in
in the policy.
clearly in the application.
I would make a motion that we accept the fee schedules as proposed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Next, we have some discussion on 2 particular articles on the special town meeting warrant, 1 and 44.
Yes, just give me a second.
1 and 4, not 44, right?
I'm sorry.
It's not that long a
Yeah, I
town
was going to
meeting.
say, I didn't think it was that long.
Try and encourage people to come to town meeting. Don't make it longer.
See if it'll work. Okay, here we go. So for Article 1, which is the article to adjust the fiscal 18 budget, so town meeting appropriates the annual budget by functional category, such as general government, DPW, library, etc. In order to increase the appropriation or transfer funds from an available source to these functional categories, it requires a town meeting vote. So that's why it's on the warrant.
Did you want that to follow what you're, okay.
All right, thank you. So what our numbers that came in for new growth exceeded our estimates that we were provided at annual town meeting. And due to our revenues increasing by this amount, as well as an increase in state aid and adjustments made to the state assessments and cherry off-sheet numbers, there was an overall increase of, and I'll get to 172,722. So going down, this slide just shows state aid, what the original estimates were on the left-hand column, and what after the budget was fully voted by the state on the right-hand column, those adjustments made. And on the bottom, the other revenue source, that is the new growth numbers, were estimated at 300,000. They came in at 481,496. And that was partially due to new construction as well as new personal property accounts made up that total. As far as the cherry sheet charges, this sheet slide shows the original estimates that were used. They were initially given by the state. Once the budget was passed, the new figures are in the right-hand column, so that's an adjustment. So that was actually an increase in expenditures on the expenditure side of the budget. But overall, it was the total revenue adjustments. You'll see the bottom line. We have an available source of funding of 172,722. If you can see this slide, very small print. So the recommendation I'm making for Article 1 for the use of the available funding would be to increase the reserve fund by 50,000 and to increase the facilities account by 122,722. And that's the available source. The other line item that will need to be adjusted, but there's no effect on the budget, is short-term interest borrowing in the amount of 27,250, which is it's excludable debt interest. So it's both on the expenditure side and the revenue side, so it balances out because it's excludable. So the reason we would request that 50,000 be added to the reserve fund this would, in the event snow and ice deficit occurred at the end of the year. Karen did a 10-year look back history on snow and ice deficit, and it averaged around 87,000 each year. And this would provide a source to transfer these funds from, and also for any other emergency expenditures needed for the remainder of the year. We would not want to increase the snow and ice line because that would affect all future years' budget. The increase for repairs for the facilities account would be repairs to town hall that we're in the process that you're aware of, the mold remediation project, the building condition needs assessment that I received a quote for, which was for 35,000 minimum. and as well as there's repairs to the gutters at the Ritter Building, and something that just occurred this last week was a repair to the system at the Eagle House for the heating system there that needs to occur.
So can you, so we're increasing by 122 is what your proposal is.
Yes.
Can you just kind of itemize that a little bit further? You kind of gave an overview of the categories, but can you, for example, the
Well-
heating system at the Eagle House?
Yes, that, I don't have a final figure for that, so I used approximately $5,000 for that
Okay.
figure. I can tell you that.
So the needs assessment is 35,000. The gutter, the heating assessment is 5. I guess I'm just questioning that sizable of an increase.
I can give you
Well, the mold
a
remediation
breakdown.
Too, right?
Yes.
But wasn't the mold remediation included in the original appropriation of the 615?
I'm sorry, the town meeting?
Yeah.
No.
What's included in the 615?
What's included in the
Okay.
615?
Not, the mold remediation project was not included in the 615.
So th-
So we
this-
received, there was a reserve fund transfer at the end of fiscal 17 to cover a portion of the costs that we incurred at that time for the mold remediation.
Okay.
But the remaining work that needs to be done, I can tell you, is to clean the HVAC ductwork, which is approximately 5,000, balance the system, which is 1,000, clean the records that are in the trailer right now. That is an estimate right now, 35,000. Clean that. Boxing and moving the records from the town hall attic. We've received a quote of about 5,000. And sealing the town hall foundation for 15,000. So that totals 61,000 right there.
So if we didn't have this new growth this year, would that money all have come out of the reserve fund to cover those costs?
Very possible, yes.
So that's 61,000.
Do you have an estimate of what you are thinking might spend for the town hall? I mean, if we're talking about the cupola, it could be a lot for added work beyond the capital article.
I think we should be within our budget for that, for the painting and the repair, yes.
You're going to be within that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So this $738,000 that the proposed amended appropriation is strictly dedicated to the town hall?
No, this is facilities and ground. Is this the facilities and ground?
Facilities and
The entire
grounds.
facilities and ground
Yeah.
line item, which covers all town buildings that are.
Okay.
Yeah.
so-
This is
okay,
not
so
just town
A
hall.
lot of the adjustment is town hall.
The
Right, the
122.
122, yes.
Yep.
But the 615 includes the library, the town hall, Public Works, or I'm not sure, all the town buildings, police, fire. That,
What do you anticipate you're going to need to do at Ritter with the foundation leaking?
The drain, the gutters, I'm sorry, the gutters. are gonna
No,
be-
how the basement at the Ritter keeps filling
That's
up.
related to the gutter system, yeah.
Do you mind?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just jumped on that. This summer, we had some pretty serious flooding in the bottom floor, and it was due mostly, it came mostly from the corner. If you're familiar with the building, we're looking right at it, it's that corner just inside the handicap entrance, that walkway comes around, it goes to the corner. And what was happening there is that there were no gutters, so there was a low spot. Water was going right into the, next to the foundation there. There had been an old drain. The drain partially worked, and that drain went to an old septic system that was decommissioned, but nevertheless, there were voids in the ground that accepted the water, and in times of excessive rain, flooded the area and made its way through the foundation wall. So what we propose for this rather short money is putting gutters, and what we did in in the short term was put from the downspout, just send one out 10 or 12 feet. Then we had this 3 or 4 or 8 inches of rain, and we got very little water, so it proved to us that that was the trigger for the flooding. So we're going to actually put modern gutters on it around that side, and have the water go more towards the west that way, and that'll be the downspout, and we'll take it away from the building. At the same time, we'll plug up any existing holes or old pipes, and we may even excavate down, pack some clay or whatever, so that any water that gets into that corner will shed off.
And that's on the new addition portion of the building, right? Not the original?
Right, well, it's right in that
At the
corner. I don't
intersection.
know
It's
how
right at the
really to
intersection where
describe
they
it,
meet,
but-
I think.
Right, but
Yeah, when you're downstairs, it's in the meeting, just off the meeting room, there was an old, people used to use it for a snack room or a
Yeah.
little kitchen in there.
Yeah.
That's that corner, that's below that corner.
but you're putting the new gutter on the new part or the old part?
No, right there, just part of it, right there, above
Okay.
that.
The old part.
That's the new part, and it's gonna pitch the water, instead of pitching it into the corner,
Right.
where it does now, just lift the gutter and pitch it away, and then get the downspout and pitch that away further and take all the water out of that corner.
Where's the
Just-
water going to end up?
The water's gonna end up towards the parking lot.
Is there any plan for how you're going to mitigate all that
Well,
water?
we're getting rid of the problem over here first.
So that's going to be part of the reuse plan for the building of what we're going to, that the building needs to do. But you're basically getting it away from the building onto the grass?
Right.
You're not going onto the street
Right.
or anything else like
Right,
that?
no. What's happening over there now, it's actually a low spot, which did have a drain, had a gutter and a downspout. And it went into a drain that has failed. Nevertheless, even though the drain's partially blocked, there are voids that accept the water, so the water keeps going in that same spot. There's no way to shed it out. It settles in that corner. So we're going to eliminate that downspout, pitch the gutter the other way, and take it down the far end of the building, and then redo that corner so even the groundwater will shed away from it.
You might be able
We
to
should
do
have no
a rain
flooding.
garden
I
on the
was gonna
corner of
say.
School and Mass Ave.
Just another question about the gutters. The old portion of the building, are those old wood gutters integrated with the roof line? Are they metal lined or?
You know, in the old building, I don't even know.
'Cause-
The gutter person wanted us to look at putting gutters all around the
Yeah,
building.
because right now the gutters, you can't see them from the road because they're
Right.
integrated in the
We
soffit.
didn't want to get into that whole architectural design or anything historical. We just felt that, a plain white gutter just to mitigate the water so we could alleviate,
Right. I'm
relieve the
just
flooding.
saying, not being critical, but just saying in the long term, those typically need, if it's a wood gutter, it needs to be resealed at some
Right.
point. If it's a metal line, it's going to need to be cared for as well.
Don't you think that'll come up in all this?
I know, but it's, I mean, it's one of those things we need to know about that we,
Yeah, well, if it's not, I guess we're reactionary at this point.
yes,
We
I
don't need to flood.
understand, completely understand
And
why.
so, where it's
All
not
the
causing a
more,
problem.
all the more reason to support this appropriation of $122,000 to allow us to have money to do that investigation or.
If you needed more information about breakdown of the cost, like the director was saying, we have a 2,000 line appropriation for the gutters. Eagle House, right now, it's a number that we're estimating, 5,000, could fluctuate once quotes come in. And the building condition assessment we've been talking about, which would cover the 5 buildings, is a low bid right now of 35,000. And there's contingency money as well.
You
And,
don't
sorry, I can't.
I don't think so.
No.
And the annual cleaning costs are increasing this year by an estimate of 15,000.
So what, I can't see it. What's that subtotal?
124,000.
124, that's with contingency, a
Okay.
10% contingency
Okay, so
on
you're
that,
looking for the
so-
122 because we
Right.
can't quite get to that 124. Okay.
It's a lot of clams.
reactionary ones too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Deferred maintenance.
All right, now we also have an agenda item.
So
If, what?
one more Article
Article
4 would be for the conceptual design for municipal offices. This would pay for the cost of an architectural firm to provide architectural and engineering services to review the existing architectural conditions and provide a conceptual design and prepare a construction cost estimate. My recommendation is to transfer the unexpended balance of $10,000 that was appropriated for Article 10 of the May 7th, 2016 annual town meeting to perform a market analysis of municipal buildings to pay for this cost.
That covers the entire cost?
Yes.
Did you put that
So
out
it's
to bid already?
yes, I have one quote back.
So this conceptual design, is that just for the wing that we were looking at, or is it for the whole building?
It was based on our space needs assessment
So it
as
wasn't the
stands.
entire building, it's
Right.
just that section?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that it's an exercise we need to go through because we can't make a decision without knowing. So.
Right.
And I think what the takeaway from last town meeting was the people wanted more data, more information.
Yep.
This is how you get it to them.
Agreed. I'm pleasantly surprised that we think we can do it for 10.
Yeah, I that seemed awful low to me.
Well, it's
but-
certainly not going to be design plans. Yeah.
Well, still, if you, to get an accurate
conceptual, yeah.
cost, you need
right.
some level of
Right.
details. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked if we went out to proposal, because clearly must mean somebody thinks they can do it for 10 grand.
Yep.
So it doesn't get us architectural plans, and I guess I want to understand that process. So how does that work? We do a conceptual design with a construction cost estimate with this funding, and then we have to go and get a full design?
Correct.
Seek another appropriation?
Yep, you'd agree on your conceptual design, on your space needs, your final space needs at that point. And once
Okay.
that is determined, then the architect would move forward and do full specifications based on what you need in that building. If you decide you want certain types of heating and cooling systems, or, but that would be a whole nother appropriation. And at that point, once the specifications are put together, then a more detailed cost analysis, line by line, would be done by cost estimator.
Right, and that would be based on estimates, and then you would go out to bid?
Yes.
Okay.
So is this architect is also doing the cost analysis, or he's contracting a cost analysis? Or were you going to use his information to get a cost analysis?
He would do the budget cost construction. So it's basic numbers using industry standards on similar projects for this portion of the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And, pretty much the rest of our agenda tonight is the facilities workshop. I think we'll get in a little more depth on some of that, but this is the data that relies upon. The number 3 current business agenda item is just to give us an opportunity to, if the board chooses to talk about any of the other special town meeting articles. Now, it's my intention to go to the Thursday night public hearing of the FinCom, and we have posted that as a meeting for ourselves as well. And my preference would be to have a consensus on what we're going to recommend on any that we can prior to the town meeting. If we're waiting for a presentation at town meeting, that's fine. But as opposed to having to huddle up after every warrant, if we can do something as a result of Thursday night, I think that would be my preference.
Yep.
Are all of us planning to attend Thursday, or?
I can't make it. I have to go to Boston for a work
Okay.
conference.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am, yeah. So it is posted and we can deliberate a little bit.
Okay,
but
so is your proposal to try to make those recommendations that night?
if they're easy, I mean,
Okay.
they're never easy. What I mean is if we have all the facts we need.
Yep. Okay.
There may be some that we have to wait to town meeting. because
Exactly.
There's not enough
Okay.
information there. Or
Okay.
There'll be more
Okay.
presentation at town meeting.
But is there any, it's on this agenda in case there's anything we wanted to talk about tonight? Okay.
I think we'll-
So then, I'm going to suggest we move to our facilities workshop for the remainder of the evening and kind of forego the committee reports unless there are any
Sure.
particular highlights that you want to address.
There is one that I want to touch on, and I had a couple others, but I'll just keep it to this one. And it's relative to the the possibility of the Conservation Commission placing a lien on property that has not paid their fine. And at the meeting, apparently this piece of property is now up for sale, and so now there's some urgency to find out whether or not we can place a lien. And the Conservation Commission agent relayed to the commission that he had attempted to get an answer from town council on several occasions and has not yet received an answer, and I was concerned about that. And I know that our council has been very responsive, but perhaps if you could just follow up on that, because there is some urgency to this, is to whether or not the commission can place a lien for fines that have not been paid, because the property is on the market.
Is the property on Pleasant Street?
It is.
Okay. Town council has been involved.
Okay, if we could just find out if we can get a definitive answer on that, because there is a need to move quickly. And just something else to put on your radar, is the commission is very interested in the possibility of obtaining the ability to get LiDAR data on the town. Apparently on one...
LiDAR?
LiDAR.
What does that mean?
It's a specific kind of mapping tool
Okay.
that goes beyond a regular topographic tool, and there was some interest in that would be a very useful tool for Conservation Commission. So if you could perhaps follow up on that. I know you're looking at the permitting and some computer grants, so, and that's it.
Okay. So do we want to do warrants or we're moving to the workshop? Want to just get them done?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's quickly do the warrants if we can.
It's,
What is this?
this is, just this needs signatures from the first right of refusal that the board.
We already
decided-
voted on this.
Yeah,
This
you
is the
already voted. Just
release of the option first right of refusal for 2030 Mass Ave. And a Water Commissioners warrant for $6,864.47.
So LiDAR is a surveying method that measures distance to a target by illuminating the target with a pulse laser light and measuring the reflected pulses with a sensor. Sorry, had to find out.
That's okay. We have an accounts payable warrant for $589,056.49. And a payroll warrant in the amount of $814,593.66. All righty. If there's no objections, we'll spend the rest of our time together on the workshop. And I know that we have at least 2 presentations. so
Yes.
How do you want to do that?
Paula, do you want to do yours?
Do you want to? Sure.
I can go first.
No, I'll go, and I'll just, I mean, it was just really my thoughts, and it was a way to put together my thoughts. So at the first workshop that we had, one of the first questions that I had relative to the buildings is, what problem is it that we're trying to solve? Because honestly, I went in there not sure that going to Passios made sense. So this was an exercise, and I want to be very clear, this is my thoughts, not the board's thoughts. It was an exercise that I did to try to figure out, why are we looking to move town offices to the Passios School? So in that first workshop, what I found and what I heard is that there's significant work that needs to be done at both the town hall and the Ritter. And as you heard tonight, there's even more that's in this list. We're looking at HVAC repairs, window replacement, water infiltration from the roof and possibly the foundation, the rot in the structural members and deflection in the floors, file storage. We're looking at $35,000 to clean records. There's electrical upgrades that are needed. It's not fully ADA accessible. The recent work that we've been doing, the mold remediation and the painting, and as we've heard tonight, there's even more that needs to be done. These are some images that are in the TAP-A study that I don't know that the public, unless they've looked at the TAP-A study, actually see. So you can see, the wheelchair ramp, you can see that the basement and the electrical components that are in need of upgrade. You can see the HVAC system desperately needs an upgrade. And in the lower corner, you can't necessarily see it, but there's some supporting boards that are trying to help in the attic. The Ritter building also is in need of significant work, HVAC replacement, windows replacement. It's not fully ADA accessible. You can get into sections of the building, but you can't get into all aspects of the building, specifically the floor where the building inspector or conservation are. Electrical upgrades are needed there as well. Other issues at Town Hall, and we all heard this, everyone who was at the meeting last night heard about this, the absence of parking. Basically, Town Hall is on 0.15 acres, so we take up the entire lot with this building. The parking that we use is really the parking for the village next door, and then across the street and street parking. So what are the advantages of consolidating municipal operations? All departments would be under one roof. There's a savings on maintenance and utility costs, possible consolidation of services between the school and municipal, ADA compliance, parking and fire protection. And having all departments under one roof, I mean, from a citizen's perspective, that's a big asset. When you have to get a permit and you have to get your sign-offs on everything, you're going from building to do that. And while an able-bodied person can certainly do that, it's not so easy if you're not quite as able-bodied. So I think we have to look at that. So why is the Passios building the preferred option, and why did the board vote the way that we did? And this is my perspective. It's the newest and largest of the potential locations. It's got the single floor, and it's generally accessible. There are some modifications that would be needed, but generally accessible. The structure and the building envelope are in good condition. The building systems are generally in good condition. There are parking options available. There's a possibility of rental space, and there's also the possibility of community use space, whether that be the gym. There were some really innovative ideas at the meeting last night that I hadn't thought of, but the possibility of having community space, whether it be for farmers, whether it be for seniors, whether it be for youth, but there's the possibility of community space. These are just some images of the Passios. You can see the building is generally in good condition. Is there some work that needs to be done? Is there asbestos abatement that needs to be done? The answer to that is yes. But out of all the buildings that we own, it's certainly the one in the best condition. So what are the next steps? Again, from my perspective, I need to identify some of those costs, and that's where we have an article to do that. We need to determine the parking requirements for the mixed use and municipal space, if that's the route that we go. We need to look at market interest in rental of space in the cafeteria and the gym, or possibly other wings of the building, because we're only looking at one wing of the building. And then we need to really look at the advantages of removing a portion of the building and the disadvantages of removing a portion of the building. And I've highlighted what I think of as advantages and disadvantages. Advantages would be obtaining parking, green space for town use, decreased maintenance costs. Disadvantages, we'd lose potential revenue, lose space, and the cost of, I'm not quite sure what those demolition costs are going to turn out to be. So we've submitted an article to town meeting for funding an RFP for looking at converting that to office space, and so we'll see how that plays out. So what happens to the town hall and the other municipal buildings? Well, unfortunately, the old primary school has significant condition issues. And, there's black mold. The exterior envelopes in need of repairs, including lintel replacement, window replacement, a new roof, masonry restoration. The interior structures are in need of repair. And these are some images, and I haven't had a chance, the town manager actually sent me some other images of this building that because of a personal issue, I didn't have time to incorporate. But these are some from the TAP-A study. And basically in that floor one, you can see that the floor is actually lifting up. It's heaved because of the water damage. All the windows need to be replaced, and there's areas that the masonry needs to be replaced. So, again, my thoughts and my thoughts alone. So what are the possibilities? There's multiple scenarios for the future of our town buildings, and I listed what I think some of them are. Lease of space for retail and commercial space in keeping with uses allowed under the Village Center District. Demolition of some structures, and personally, I think, unfortunately, the old primary is one of those structures. But there is a possibility to create green space for municipal gatherings and use. Investigate an interest in reuse for things like a farming craft collaborative, a theater art collaborative, youth activities. Again, my thoughts. And then we have to determine the market interest in sale of buildings for uses allowed in the Village Center District and preserved in accordance with the APD. And I did this, the way I approached this whole presentation is information for people that we're not just shooting off the cuff. There is reasoning behind our proposal. So more information and participation is needed before we take action. We need to identify the cost of relocation to TCP, and we have an RFP to do that, or to start that process, and the town manager just talked about that. We need to identify the parking requirements, because as we heard last night, parking is a huge issue for our existing town center and our buildings and any potential reuse. We need to identify the repairs and estimated costs of the various buildings. We just talked tonight about $1 million into buildings that we're going to have to spend. And that's just to reactionary. It's not thinking ahead. We need to identify market interest. We need further investigation on that. And, last night we heard a lot of ideas about trying to assist the existing businesses in town. And I think that's something that we need to do further investigation on. And personally, I think we need an economic development committee. And then we need public involvement. And last night was a great start in that. And I hope that we do more of that. And what I'd like to identify is the schedule for that. When are we going to have those charrettes? How are we going to reach out to the public? What's our strategy in getting and making sure the public is involved in this process? So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
The town manager also has a presentation. Is there any questions or comments on Paula's, or do you want to hold them?
Thanks a lot, Paul.
Yeah, I would just add to the ADA issue. And technically, this building, the Ritter building, meet the existing building requirements for accessibility, but personally, I don't think it's acceptable what a disabled person has to go through to get into these buildings. I mean, if you're building a new building, the main entrance needs to be accessible, which neither Town Hall or the Ritter building offers. You have to enter through a back door, which across sidewalks and ramps that are not, suitable for people in wheelchairs to be rolling over. The Town Hall doesn't have a parking space with an accessible route to get to that ramp that goes to the door. The restrooms in the Town Hall are not handicap accessible. Both buildings exist on multiple levels, and they have, instead of an elevator, they have what's called a LULA, which stands for a limited use, limited access elevator. So it's not meant for high traffic or heavy use, and we have one town staff person who's been stuck in both elevators because they malfunction, because they're not meant for heavy use. To me, it's a little disgraceful and completely unacceptable that with an aging population, we make it so difficult for somebody to get in, do their business with the town, and participate in town democracy. And again, with even the Passios building, sorry, not Passios, the Ritter building, it exists on 3 levels. So if we were to put another addition on the other side, which levels do you match up with? You're still taking planes, trains, and automobiles to get from one level to one side of the building to the other because you're transversing multiple levels. And I mean, it's allowed by an existing building standpoint for other buildings, but that's not a municipal building where people should have the most accessibility to.
I couldn't agree more. Having a dad who was in a wheelchair and trying to come into this building was a challenge. So I couldn't agree more.
So I put some slides together, and the topics that I kind of wanted to review were the building condition for the old primary school, the Brooks House, Town Hall, and Ritter Memorial Building, as well as the building condition and benefits and costs of moving to TC Passios, and long-term plan for the old primary school, Brooks House, Town Hall, and Ritter Building. So as you see, these similar pictures to what Selectman Bertram had. The building, the old primary school at 30 School Street, was built in 1928. It's been vacant since 2005. It sits on a 2.7 acre parcel, and it currently has 12,300 square feet of space. There's been water damage, flooding in the boiler room that you can't see, but there is a watermark on the wall there. That was pointed out to me by the DPW director when we looked at the building. There are roof leaks, mold, asbestos, this window replacement needed, fire alarm system, and sprinkler system. So if you were to look at some of the benefits of that building, would be the location. It's located off of Main Street and next to the Historical Society building, and the availability for parking. The associated costs would be the structural integrity, whether it's actually a sound building, if we could be considered for renovation, abatement of the asbestos and any other hazardous materials and black mold, the known flooding that's happened in the mechanical room, which mean all new equipment, complete replacement of plumbing, HVAC, sprinkler system, fire alarm system, and it is not ADA compliant. So it would require an elevator, which estimated cost is around $1 million usually.
And not to interrupt, but again, that building's another one that's on 3 levels, and there's no real spot to hit all 3 levels with an elevator, even if you want to put one in. So you're going to use the square footage trying to accomplish something that's not going to get you very much.
The roof, windows, doors, repointing of the brick would need to be done to keep the structural integrity. When the study was done by TAPE, the renovation addition costs for that building were around $8 million at that time, with a 4% escalator would be around over $9 million in today's dollars. So given the state of the building, I would consider demolition for this building. And some of the comments in the TAPE study done 2 years ago had the exterior brick shows signs of minor cracking and water damage. The interior concrete slabs have heaved and cracked in many places. The second floor also shows heaving due to failure in supporting masonry walls. Major water damage from missing roofing over a gymnasium was viewed. It is unknown if this compromised any structure. So if we were to demolish and remove the hazardous materials from that building, the benefit would be 2.7 acres of green space or another purpose identified by town meeting. It would also allow for additional space for municipal parking shared with the Historical Society parking area. And the demolition and removal of hazardous materials, as identified by the TAPE study at the time, was $221,400, with a 4% escalator would be around $247,968. And I think as I cite these numbers, they're all estimates. I don't want to say these are final figures. These were based on those numbers at that time and adding escalator. The Brooks House at 1033 Mass Ave was built in 1955. It currently houses the school facilities director's office, storage area.
So it's not 1955, it's a lot older than that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not
Okay,
1955.
that was one on record.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no way.
It's in the 1800s.
Yeah,
A
1800s.
lot of the
Okay.
assessor's records, because I went through it with the historic commission when I was on that, if they didn't know the date, they put
Plugged the date.
1950s,
Okay.
because that's when they started their records.
Okay, my error. So a lot older than 1955. And so it also has rental space for the Lunenburg Ledger. It's on a approximately 1 acre lot with 2,000 square feet of office space. And these are just some pictures of the interior. You can see the old radiator system for heating, and the front porch, which is actually needs significant work. It's starting to separate from the building itself. So a benefit for this building is that we receive rental income that covers the current utility costs. And the associated costs over the long term, the roof is about 25 to 30 years old and should be replaced. The boiler was replaced in 2005 and converted to gas in 2010. The heating system is a combination of fin tube radiation and old hot water radiators. It was vinyl sided in 1998, but the remaining wood trim and porch needs to be repainted, and the porch needs significant work. The building is not energy efficient, has inadequate insulation, and pest control has been an issue. The basement has a high moisture content, and it's a field stone basement. The gutters need to be replaced, and there's a high water table there that causes the sump pump to be run on an annual, year-round basis.
In the past, we had records stored in that basement too that were all destroyed by flooding, so we've lost a lot of our records over time.
Thus, everything was built in 1955.
So the long-term costs may outweigh the potential use of the building and the rental we receive that cover the current utility costs. Town Hall, 17 Main Street, and is this number correct? 1830s. Currently houses 7 municipal departments, houses the meeting hall for various boards, commissions, and public functions. It's on a 0.15 acre parcel with approximately 5,700 square feet of space. And these pictures are the attic on the left-hand side with the boxes of storage that we will be moving out of this building. The bottom middle picture is in the basement. There's a variety of old wires that go nowhere or functional. We hope. Yeah, we hope. But that need to be removed, and the electrical and communication system need to be updated. And that right-hand picture is in the attic, looking down at one of the structural beams. There's damage to the actual beam. You'll see it's rot. That beam.
Right, so, I'll add it later.
So the benefits of the building is located in the center of town, has this historic value, and it's a central piece of architectural for the community. And we receive a lease payment from T-Mobile, which is approximately $37,000 for this fiscal year. The cost, there's no parking. Employees park in privately owned lot in the rear building or on the street. Public meetings cause use of parking for neighboring businesses at the village next door. The building needs significant structural work, reinforcement of floor framing, repair of rot and insect damage, repoint seal masonry chimneys, reinforcement of attic roof trusses. The roof will need to be replaced. Windows, repair of rotted wood sills, removal of old electrical wires and pipes. There's also pipes in the basement that go nowhere as well. Requires security upgrades. The building is not energy efficient. which increases our utility costs. The office space is heated and cooled unevenly. The quality of air inside the building is affected by the building envelope. There is no elevator. It could be more accessible to the public. There's no sprinkler system, and there's no space for storage of public records. So the operational costs for this building are approximately $41,000. If town offices were moved out and the space was not occupied all the time, the operational cost should decrease, so could be offset by the communications lease if the building was retained by the town. The Ritter Building at 960 Mass Ave, built around 1910 with a 1963 addition. Currently houses 5 town departments, state representative office, Friends of the Seniors office, and storage, and 2 meeting rooms for various committees. This is on a 1.1 acre parcel with 6,000 square feet of office space. Similar to the town hall, the benefits are the location, it's the intersection of Mass Ave, Main Street, and Leominster Road, the historic value and unique architecture, and the building is in generally good condition. The associated costs would be insufficient parking and space for the lot size to consolidate municipal office if that were a consideration. It's lacking in accessibility, the entrance, the bathrooms, and there's no elevator, just a chairlift. Windows will need to be replaced. Upgrades would be needed to the AC, HVAC, and electrical systems, and eventually the roof would need to be replaced. And there is no sprinkler system. In FY17, the operational costs for this building were approximately $28,000. The TCP, built around 1952, is used for central district offices for the school, IT office space, the ACE program, special services, food manager, PAC, and the gym is used by various community groups, and we are in the process of renting the kitchen space. This exists on a 7-acre parcel, approximately 56,000 square feet. The benefits of moving town offices to TCP: the location, it's the proximity to other town buildings, the consolidation of town offices, which would increase communications and would be a one-stop for public looking, say, to pay their taxes or to get various licenses. The lot size and the existing building footprint give options for unutilizing all space or partial demolition. The building structure is in good condition. It's ADA compliant, accessible. It has increased energy efficiency by consolidating all our town offices there. One level would eliminate the requirement for the added expense for an elevator. The use of the gym and kitchen could continue to be used by community groups and rented for commercial purpose. And the interior security system is tied to the entranceway, so that's a benefit for that building. Associated costs: asbestos abatement and removal of hazardous materials. There is asbestos in the floor tiles, mastic, cove molding, and pipe insulation. Significant upgrades to the electrical, HVAC, sprinkler and fire alarm system, communications, network system, and additional security cameras would be needed on the exterior. The roof was done in 1986 and the seams done in 2013, and there are leaks in certain areas of the building. A new roof would be required. Enough parking space, but we would need to accommodate for site work and the paving and line painting for parking. The TAPE identified the demolition cost for 20,800 square feet of that building at $4,775,000 in the renovation, and with the escalator, 4% escalator in 2018, that cost would be $5,348,000. The abatement for the 20,800 square feet was in the TAPE $317,200 today's dollars, $355,264. And the abatement for just the 35,000 square feet for existing consolidated office, using those numbers, was around $219,000. The current fiscal year costs are covered by previous rental users for this fiscal year, but we will need to reassess that budget this year to see what's remaining and what the operating costs will be for fiscal 19. This year's projected operational cost is between $47,000 and $61,000.
Does PAC pay rent?
Yes.
But Flack is no longer in the building.
Right.
Correct.
Been involved in 3 projects now with community access cable, looking for space to rent, and I've done the spaces for them, and they have a lot of specific requirements for high ceilings and large spaces, and I try to just think about Lunenburg, and if PAC didn't have a space there, where the heck are they going to rent it from?
Well, from the cable advisory standpoint, and Mr. Alonso can speak to this as well, as a member of the cable advisory group, the PAC has done a very well thought out business plan, and there's a strong need for a new studio with substantially more space and more technology than we currently have. So there is a proposal for a larger space and an upgraded studio.
I know it has been discussed before about demolishing that building for green space or other purposes. Based on the TAPE study estimates for demolition and hazardous components abatement, in 2015, that would have been $925,950, and using 2018 costs, it would be $1,037,064.
Can you say that again, that number?
2015 was $925,950.
Yeah.
Today's $1,037,064.
And that's for demolition of the entire building?
And removal of the hazardous, yeah.
And just grass left afterwards, nothing,
Yes.
no park, no field, no
Right.
stormwater.
Probably not even grass.
Okay. So 1.4 million.
No one to mow the grass.
Long-term plan for the old primary school, Brooks House, Town Hall, and Ritter. The old primary school, I would recommend demolition and inclusion on the capital plan for costs for that demolition and removal of asbestos hazardous materials. Could become green space. There would be enough area for municipal parking lot or potential site for a mixed-use development as determined by town meeting. Brooks House, consider demolition in the next 5 to 10 years due to cost to maintain and upkeep may outweigh the potential use of the building and rental. Town Hall would recommend retain town ownership of the building for community use purposes, perform a building condition assessment to maintain and upkeep the building, focus on ensuring that it's a safe working environment for our employees and the public while we're still here and thereafter. Inclusion of recommendations of the building condition assessment into the capital plan, so we keep up with our repair and maintenance of the building. Retain the communications lease, which would offset the operational costs for future years. The Ritter building, retain town ownership of the building to lease for a farming cooperative or a restaurant that will retain the historic quality that adds character to the town center and supports local business. Would need to address parking requirements if there was a change of use as determined by the village district. That's all I have.
So can you put that last slide up, your recommendations?
So, I understand the value of retaining ownership of those buildings, but do we have personnel? Do you have time in your schedule? Who would administer, essentially being a property manager for the building, handling, lease agreements and stuff like that? Is that you? Is that Jack being property manager? Do we hire someone else?
I think that would all have to be taken into consideration in the plan for the building. I'm not a huge supporter of the town becoming a landlord, but I also don't non-retaining ownership of the town relinquishing their ownership of the building.
So I think the presentation was excellent. My thoughts are, I would hate to see the Brooks House demolished. I think it does have a resale value, and I think it does have a use. Town Hall, personally, I think this would be a great place for a co-op eventually. And I do think that if we do retain ownership, I share the concerns about becoming a landlord, but I also think then we can keep and maintain the historic integrity of the building, and we have some control about that. If we did a long-term lease, same thing with Ritter. I mean, the other part of that is if we do sell it, it has to be in keeping with the APD and the Village Center District. So, you know, I think it's going to depend on the appetite of the town, but a long-term lease is an option. And I think looking at leasing that for a use in keeping with the Village Center District, personally, I'd love to see a farm-to-table restaurant there. But whether or not there's a market for that, I don't know. And then you have the issue of parking. But I agree conceptually with the idea. Unfortunately, as I said, I think the primary school is beyond saving. But I don't know that I agree that the Brooks House is, and I think that there would be an interest potentially in someone buying that property. I don't know that the town needs to keep it, but I think it does have value.
Right, and with any of these buildings, we have to go through the demolition application process with the APD.
Right.
And I think, again, speculating, I could see where they would see our argument for the primary school needing to be demolished, but I think some might argue there's some historic value to the Brooks House. I mean, the Jones House on Main Street, that was a roundabout process, but we did end up finding somebody who wanted to buy it and fix it up and get it back in good shape and on the tax rolls. So whether it's someone who wants to live there or somebody wants a small business there, I feel like, I mean, you at least put it out there, see if somebody wants it. If they don't want it, okay, then tear it down. But I think it's worth the exercise of seeing if somebody wants it.
Right.
So the interesting thing about the Ritter building, when we talk about a restaurant, it was originally on the site was the town tavern.
Really?
So, and it faced Leominster Road. That was the road, Route 2A didn't exist where it did. It used to go between Town Hall and the building next door, and that was the roadway there, and they then moved it. When they built the library, they redirected the front door, so the use of alcohol on that site is not unprecedented.
The Revere House, I believe.
The Revere House, that's correct.
The Revere
Yeah.
House.
Yeah.
The stagecoach stopped there.
We could also call the old primary school the old high school, because in 1928 it was built for the brand-new high school for the town. I always hate to see any brick building. Where I'm working now, we're renovating a 6-story mill building, but we're talking $24 million worth of things to do, 65,000 square feet. So it's very expensive to do that. And as all the different studies, including the housing study, when it was looked for elderly housing, it was a very difficult building to do anything. So I'm not a big believer in tearing things down, but I tend to support with that going direction. I'd echo the trying to keep the Brooks House. Worst case, possibly somebody moving it to someplace else, but then you have a 1-acre parcel that I'm not sure what you want to use for that property. Town Hall needs to be kept, but it's going to be pretty expensive for whatever anything is going to go into it to bring it up to be safe and reuse. You're talking millions of dollars. Not suitable for town offices, but clearly would be a great performance hall and other things like that.
Well, I would actually say no to the performance hall, because you're raising the hazard level of the building.
Oh, right, for the exits and...
the exits and the accessibility and the elevators and all that. That's a much more intensive rehabilitation than maybe like an artist cooperative or something like that.
A
Smaller
retail
use,
space,
yeah.
a retail
Well,
space.
so less intensive use is probably what's best for this one.
So part of the article, the money that you've got within the town facilities, that you're going to actually do a greater assessment on all the buildings?
Yes.
So we'll have more information for that, because I think the pictures are important, but I think that the real assessment of each of the buildings would be important.
What's the timeline? If we receive the funding in November to do that assessment, do you have any idea of the timeline?
I believe that proposal, they say they could do it in 60 days.
Really?
So we'd be able to do something.
So we'd
at
be
the
able to do
annual town
at the
meeting.
annual? Okay.
That include a couple meetings with us to agree with what they're proposing, or,
Well, they're coming in, they're doing an assessment.
well, the assessment,
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking the other $10,000.
Yeah, not the,
No, yeah.
the assessment,
Just
building
assessment.
condition assessment.
But that's a big part of it, in identifying exactly what needs to happen to each of these buildings.
Because I don't want, if the Passios option works, I don't want to move out of this building unless we know what's going to happen with it.
Exactly.
Because otherwise it would turn into the primary school. Even though you have best of plans to take care of it, which we're trying to do, but anytime you have a vacant building, it's really dangerous.
And that's the
The
concern
only-
with the
the only-
Passios.
The only thing I'd push back on is that you run the same risk at the Passios if you don't
Exactly.
move into it and revitalize it. And I'm not disagreeing, I'm
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, you're right.
That's the thing, is we need to come up with a plan. I mean, the plan was to have the Passios become town property, which it is now, but we can't leave it vacant. I mean, we're going to end up in the same situation that we're in at the primary. We have to do something with that building.
I'm going to share something that I've been percolating for the last couple of meetings, and especially last night. There was an awful lot of creative thought that went on last night, and that's what a brainstorming session is all about. But when I hear things like farmers cooperative, restaurant, brew pub, swimming pool, and I try to match it up with my experience in the last couple of years of trying to get people involved in doing things, you don't accomplish any of that stuff without an incredible amount of passion of a group of people that want to do that. And part of that passion is to be able to raise the funds either through taxation or through some other private method to get those things done. And I just want to be practical, because when we say I'd like that or I don't like that, I think it's really important for us to put the practicality around, is there a passion among a group of people that don't have day jobs, just running the fire department, the police department, the schools, et cetera? And it's kind of the reason I lean towards private enterprise, and as part of the building reuse said, let's put it out for bid and see if anybody wants to invest their time, effort, money, and passion in these buildings. And I also said that the safeguards had to be built into the village district bylaw and the architectural protection bylaw to make sure that someone who has the passion, money, and will to do some of that stuff was guided by what the town wanted. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if we sit here and say it would be a great idea to have a brew pub or a farmers cooperative, it doesn't happen because we say it would be a great idea for it to happen.
Right.
So one of the things I would say is that what some places have done for like the town hall, we'll take this one and we'll do the brew pub differently, is that you go out for requests for proposals for nonprofits or other entities to come in and do something with this building. After we have the needs assessment, after we have here's what the building's the condition, you're going to come into it with your eyes wide open of what you have to do, and we would say, we want somebody to give us a proposal that we would transfer the town would have to do it, transfer this to this nonprofit entity to do something that they think they would do. They would have to show that they have the financial wherewithal and that they have a plan to do it.
It's a similar exercise we went through with the primary school. I mean, unfortunately, that didn't work out, but it's a very similar exercise. And there is funding available for cooperatives, and other towns have done this. I mean, I didn't bring it with me, but I have a number of towns that have done this kind of thing with cooperatives or farm-to-table restaurants, and they've received grant funding, certainly not for the whole thing, but you make a very valid point, is there has to be a group of people that have a passion for doing this. We've heard from a couple of the people that are farmers that are very passionate, but I don't know if there's a huge, we talked last night, there was a lot of talk about supporting our existing farmers, and that's a very valid question. Are our farmers interested in doing something like this? And I think that's a very good question.
And what that does is it takes, if there's that interest, okay, that's great. If there's not, well, then that's a message that the town would be able to hear, that we've tried to do it this way. Let's, and then we have the town manager do the due diligence with trying to work with various groups that might be doing it. Well, what are the building blocks? What are the stumbling blocks? Does the town retain an easement on the outside and we maintain the outside? Not saying that would be the ideal thing to do, but clearly the town manager should not be running the town hall for the nonprofit.
Right.
We can't do that.
We can't do that, right.
That's not the case. You could sublease it, you do other stuff like that, but even then, I struggle with us being a landlord.
Right.
Right. The town manager talked about that. Mm-hmm. Moving on to the Ritter building, we talked about handicapped accessibility, several levels, other stuff like that, and you're going to put a restaurant in there. Well, you got a mini bar, you have a restaurant area, you have a different things. Somebody may be able to do that. And what I would propose is that we did the RFP process for somebody to do it before, but we required them to put up the bond. Maybe we do a request for interest. Is there somebody willing to do it? There's still an issue with parking. The zoning requires parking for X number of seats at the bar or in a restaurant. How is that actually going to work? But we need to try it before we figure out something else.
And I think, I mentioned this a couple workshops ago, if there's a use or a select series of uses that the town is interested in having in, say, the Ritter building, I'm more than happy to do some schematic plans, show this works, use that as a marketing tool to try to get somebody involved, because there's more people with money than ideas out there, and if you give them something that the town likes, the town's okay with, they're probably more apt to pursue it. So, but again, town hall is, Ritter and town hall are two different animals. I'm not worried about Ritter. I'm sure we can find somebody to lease that or buy that or do something with it and make money. The town hall, I really would love to be able to find a nonprofit or somebody who can really care for the building, do fundraising. I have a hard time believing whatever use you put in here is going to generate enough money to upkeep the building. There's got to be some altruistic, aspect to it where people are, going to fundraisers, donating money, and keeping the thing alive. We don't have enough tax money to throw at it. We don't, and I can't see somebody putting a business in here that's going to support it.
The other, changing gears just a little bit, the other fact of life that I've come to realize is that when we consider the center of town, if you define the center of town as this building and radiating outwards, we have a parking problem that can't be fixed. The only thing that I see is using some sort of municipal parking solution. And interestingly enough, when I heard the discussion last night, we heard people say how inconvenient it was to carry a case of wine from Elena's to the back parking lot. Now, are they going to carry it across the street or over where the Ritter used to be or over where the primary currently is? Well, only if we get behind a municipal parking town center marketing concept, where if it's in support of ecotourism or agritourism or whatever the terminology is, and maybe something that is a worthy effort for the town to work on is a parking solution, and let the rest of it be driven by people with passion, private or public. But you can't put parking at town hall. We don't own any more space to do that.
The question becomes whether we could work with the property owner next door to put a parking garage in their parking lot behind us. There are grants from the state that you could get for parking for economic development. You're going to have to tie it to what would actually happen here. But yeah, the answer is there has to be parking. And so, unless you're going to take green space for a big parking lot, the reality is you need a parking garage.
The idea is also walkability too, and get the complete street study now. We'll see what they identify. The state highway is a little bit of an issue for us, what we can do as far as getting across Mass Ave. But thinking about walkability, one of the big things is having destinations at the ends of the routes. So if you take the primary lot over there and put a park or parking way set back there, there's no reason for anybody to walk back there.
Right.
So you feel like you're not in between destinations. If you were to put an anchor back there, way back, utilize maybe the closer part for park or parking or whatever, it makes it feel like you're not walking from no man's land to somewhere else. It's all destinations and connectivity and things along the way is what makes walking fun, interesting, and accomplishes what we're looking for.
And you do the parking garage and other things like that that's out of the way for employees, and you make parking closer for customers. I mean, that's easy to say. I mean, even the parking in front of Bad Larry's and Elena's is town-owned. We own up to the sidewalk. We own the sidewalk, I think. No, we own up to the sidewalk. So there's not enough parking if there was an expansion of the village for usage. So the intensity is important for that walkability for people who want to go someplace, but we probably need to spend money on a parking study.
It's funny, I mentioned a parking garage to the town manager today, and she said, I don't think you'd ever get that. But here I am hearing you say it, and I don't think that we have any other options in the town center. And, there are studies that we can do, and under the Unified Planning Work Program, and I know another community just had a parking study done. So there are options, locally with regional funding. I know we're using a lot of the DLTA grants for the work we're doing now, but there are those types of grants available through Montechusett for things like parking studies. And, there is funding through federal funding for parking garages. The city of Air or town of Air is now doing a parking garage that's being funded in part by TIP money. So there is funding opportunities. But the first thing to do is to do a parking study. But to do a parking study, you have to identify what the uses are, because the uses determine the parking.
Concord was mentioned yesterday about walkability, and if anybody's been there, there's parking on the street, but there are parking lots off to the side that are not very convenient. But because of what is downtown, you're willing to walk that extra distance to get to that point. So it's going to be the chicken and the egg, and as Adam said at the meeting last night, we set the table, and we want people to come in to sit at the table. So the town has to set the table for what needs to be done. And we're not going to solve that tonight, but we've identified, and last night they talked about parking, and that's got to be part of the component.
Personally, I don't think we need a parking garage. I think we can find other solutions, but, I just built one. They're pretty expensive.
Yep.
And there's upkeep and all that stuff too to go along with it, but I think if we're creative about, again, like I said, and kind of like Bob was saying, making the destination, making people want to be here, they'll walk. A quarter mile is considered walkable, and that's conveniently pretty much the radius that Adam used when he drew the village center district. So even if you're talking about parking at the fringe of that, realistically, if there's amenities that people want to be at, they will walk around the place. You don't need to.
So that's Marshall Park.
Just the edge of it, yeah.
And Marshall Park needs parking. So you got alternate parking uses for this and for this.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
So we got to think outside the box on that.
Now, one of the things we plan to do with this workshop is because of the scheduling issues, we've broken it into two portions, and we will have another one the 21st of November. But one of the things we wanted to do is to try to get some sort of calendar together on what are next steps, what are we going to do next, who needs to be part of that, et cetera. I might suggest that we make that part of the next one, but think about it between now and then. You know, what activities have to happen?
And what money is going to be needed to, do we need a study that we can do? Do we need a study that we need to hire a consultant, that we can get a grant for, or something else like that? So literally, what are the different steps that would be required? And some stuff we already have in place. We're doing a building assessment. We have the space needs.
I think we got to do a charrette, and we got to schedule that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think the town manager's presentation she just gave is kind of a good maybe introduction to the charrette and get people's reactions from that, and we can come up with some targeted areas where we want their feedback from. But I think that might be a good framework to start, because it's helpful to get the backstory. We're not starting from zero here. Work's been done, studies have been done, we have information. We should present it to the people who are interested.
Yeah, I would like to at least have a charrette scheduled so that we know that what we're working towards. I think that makes sense. And getting more public involvement. I think we're starting down that road, which is great, but I think we need more.
Do we have are we going to use one of our regular scheduled meetings for a charrette date, or are we going to pick another night, or what are we looking at?
And it would be good to have it scheduled so that we could announce it at the town meeting. Talk about it.
When did we do the charrette for the,
I think it was fall.
was it a
But
Saturday?
what day of the
Saturday?
week was it?
It was a night.
Was it a night or was it?
Yeah, it was an-
It was a
night.
night. It was a night.
Okay.
Probably a middle of the week night.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, you had the walking tour
Yep.
before it
Yeah.
on a
That's why I'm thinking
Saturday.
of the
The
daytime.
Saturday
Yeah,
was
right.
during the day,
Okay.
the walking tour was on the Saturday, and then the charrette was during the week.
We should do the walking tour again.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's important for people to see the buildings
Yeah.
and the context. we
And I'd
might
love
want-
people to be able to see the insides of the buildings, I mean, to some degree.
So we
I
do
mean,
that before
obviously,
it snows.
safety's a concern.
right.
Huh?
Before it snows anyway, it'd be a good
Yeah.
starting point.
Oh, that's too late. It's snowing outside.
Oh, great.
Is it really?
Less than an inch.
I'd like to, if we can at least have a couple target dates right now for a walking tour and a charrette.
A holiday tour. We're going to ask the various buildings to have hot chocolate and
Is it the second and fourth
Yeah, complimentary
Wednesdays?
ones.
Is it the second and fourth Wednesdays? It's like the first and third are conservation and school committee.
Second and fourth of the rest.
second and fourth is the charter.
So that Wednesday's out. Thursday?
Yeah, I think the next finance meeting was,
FinCom's starting to get busy.
Do
But-
they meet weekly? Yeah, they do meet weekly now, right?
Not
No,
quite,
not
not
yet.
quite.
after town meeting, I think their next meeting was the 16th or
So they're not meeting no, it can't be
the 14th,
14th.
December 14th.
Is the 7th open? Probably,
Yes.
maybe.
December 7th?
Lucky number 7.
Yeah, that's not
Can we
bad.
do anything sooner? I mean, is there
Well,
any
it's
way to do?
Thanksgiving, we got town
Thanksgiving.
meeting.
Okay,
You got to give notice to people.
okay.
I mean, it's a month away.
Well, a
but-
walking tour has to be on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So the 2nd and the 7th?
Yeah. Let's try it.
Although the 2nd I can't be here, but.
Okay.
We have a stormwater task force meeting scheduled, but I'm sure we can work around that and reschedule it.
Oh, no, I can be here on the 2nd, actually.
2nd and the 7th.
All right, so working dates, the 2nd for a walking tour of December and the 7th for a charrette.
And it's right after town meeting, so that's good, because
Yep.
people can remember.
We can publicize it then.
So are we gonna
Get it in the
talk
ledger.
about, we have one more meeting before town meeting. Are we gonna talk about content of the charrette then?
Don't we have two?
Can we do, okay.
Before town meeting?
I can work on something.
We have the 14th and the 21st,
All right.
right?
Somebody better than him.
So are we looking to figure out content tonight, or are we going to do it?
I
Along
would
the
say,
way.
figure out the content of the charrette at our next meeting or the following one.
I mean, I think, like you said, Damon, I think the idea of starting with the town manager's presentation and then asking people, I mean, you know, similar to what you did last time, is have a couple questions and then have different groups come back with ideas on, you know, what would you like to see at the Ritter? What would you like to see at Town Hall? Do you agree with moving town offices? Or, you know, and just those questions in different working groups.
Do you agree with the town maintaining ownership of everything and
Right.
becoming a
Do you-
landlord?
Right, do you agree with rental or do you agree with selling? I mean, those are 4 questions that we can have 4 different groups working on. And how else do we want to engage the public? So we're talking about a charrette and a walking tour. How else do we want to, you know, we did a survey for the painting. Is a survey a good tool for this kind of thing, or is it not useful?
I think it would be a useful tool, just at least for more input, the people that can't make meetings.
It's got to be part of many different,
Right.
My only issue with the survey for this one is getting the backstory.
Right.
Right.
Right, because you can ask a question, but if you don't give all the data behind the question, you're going to get a different answer.
Right.
Right,
Right.
people won't understand.
Yeah, I almost think
It's
the
how you
survey is
ask-
the next step
It's
after
how you
after
ask
some of
the
this is out
question.
there, right?
It's how you ask the question, yeah, okay, that's true.
The other thing I was thinking last night is we have an incredible amount of planning that's going on for a new and improved website, a new and improved Facebook or not. I think we have to get out a schedule on that. You know, not that we have to speed it up. We should do it as quickly as we can. But we can't, we have to stop saying it's in the works. We have to start saying we'll have it by
Yeah.
a certain time.
Right.
You know, so that's something we should work on.
Website is early spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about like a Facebook type deal?
Working on it.
Is it?
I don't want to just start a page without having, you know, it
Can you
fully launched.
Can you physically
Yeah.
like prevent comments from happening, so it's only an output?
yeah.
Yes.
You cannot prevent comments on pictures. So if there's any kind of picture
Oh, so
associated, you cannot prevent comments on that.
And if we want public involvement, if we're only posting, that's not really public involvement.
Well, no, I'm just trying to speed up.
The
Getting
inf-
It's
information.
one other aspect. It's hitting
information,
people that don't have.
communication, yeah.
Not everybody reads the ledger.
No, I agree, but I'm looking for involvement, meaning comments and, you know,
Right, I'm just
an
trying to get it-
exchange.
Yeah,
You-
but
you do
Facebook
need-
is,
But I agree,
Facebook
you
is
have to
not an
control it.
exchange. Facebook is lines of communication that don't cross the way we were trying to get information. It is a way to get quick information out, but not in-depth discussion.
And it certainly
agree.
doesn't
I agree. I
preclude
agree.
itself to civil discourse
I-
and productive
right.
conversation.
So I mean, it
Right,
is one
right.
tool that we should use, the same thing as the website. If we
Mm-hmm.
get the new website, it will be more interactive that way for sharing information. But we need to have more charrettes, more public hearings,
Mm-hmm.
more public meetings. That's really the way to do it.
And we need to get people involved, so when we've set these dates, you know, the 2nd and the 7th, we need to get that in, you know, a big ad in the Ledger, a big write-up about what we're talking about. I mean, we've got to get people here, because if we don't get people here, it's not a worthwhile exercise.
Even the Sentinel, I would think, I bet a lot of people get the Sentinel who live in
Yeah,
town.
whatever we can do on the scrolls, right on the front page of the website, you know, not through layers, but
back
right on the
scrolls.
front page. We really have to get people here. So I was very pleasantly surprised by the number of people that came last night. It was great, but I'd like to see double that, triple that. So, you know, we need to get the word out, and I think we have enough time to do that.
We'll make sure there's food.
And
Yeah,
make sure there's
food.
food, yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
Well, we could do one charrette here, we could do one charrette in the Passios building. The charrette, well, the Ritter's not really conducive to a big building, but
Well, depending on how many people we have, I would, you know, is this the right building to have it in? I don't know. Or do we look at the high school or the Maybe I'm thinking way too optimistically, but.
I mean, this building worked. We were able to break up into small rooms and other stuff.
Yeah, but we only had,
But it
how
was a
many,
small-
like 20, it was a small group,
Yeah, 20 or
20 or 30
maybe 30
people.
people, yeah.
Yeah, we need more room.
I mean, I'm hoping we get a lot more people.
Maybe.
Well, and the thing is, you should assume that initially you're going to have smaller groups, and then when you actually have something that people can react to, the people that don't have a lot of time will come to react to that, as opposed to do the work in between. You have to figure out who's got the time to do all the legwork, and then who's actually going to be willing to come, and this is something you're going to do to my building, or I really like it, I'm going to come out and support it, or I'm going to come out and not support it. And that's the time when we'll have a really big.
Well, you know what? The walking tour will be a pretty good indicator of how many people are going to show up on Thursday.
Right, and, I mean, kind of maybe along what you're saying, people generally who are involved with town stuff know what this building looks like. Maybe if we did it in the Passios Caf or something like that.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good
You
idea.
can serve the food there.
Yeah. That's actually a great idea.
And you could maybe get some of the farmers and some of the craftspeople and.
Yeah. That's actually a really good idea.
Mind you, I'm not going to be the one organizing it, so I'm going to do it, but
Oh, I bet we can get a volunteer.
This is going to be on our agenda again on the 21st, but let's give the town manager a little opportunity to put some meat on this, and we'll get back to it, all right? Anything else on this topic for this evening? Let me see what. In a moment. Okay, I think we covered action file issues in the abbreviated version, so I think we are ready to accept any public comment from the public.
Hi, it's Katie Adams from Williams Drive. I like the expressions, thanks, sorry. I just wanted to comment, not necessarily as a public comment, but just as part of the conversation, because I have poured months into this topic with outreach and learning and changing and sort of understanding it just from my own interest as somebody who loves history and loves Lunenburg. And I've adapted some of my own thoughts as I've gone along. And so just sort of having met hundreds of people, and I just wanted to join in the conversation tonight. First, just briefly, from the TC Passios perspective, the fact that in what I want to represent, sort of this idea for a municipal center in a minute, but it doesn't mean that there isn't value to that building. I think it could go either way. That might be more valuable land for the future, but there's lots of recreational value, and that's reflected in like in Stowe, where they have a community kitchen and things. They've used an old school. So TC Passios isn't really something I'm going to really be talking about one way or the other. But then, as learning about this whole process, have really developed in this idea of creating a municipal campus in town center. So it's sort of inspired by spending time on the school campus, especially if you're back at Turkey Hill and you look up at the high school, you see the campus. And I was talking to an out-of-town coach who was like maybe jealous of Lunenburg, you know, just like, wow, this school is incredible. And you're like, yeah, it is. And it's because it has this campus feeling. And part of that campus is this entire region where there's 2 playgrounds, there's a library, there's the elementary school and the middle high school, and a lot of athletic fields. And so when we think about moving town hall to there, I feel like we're putting the municipal campus into the school campus. And I'm not sure if it reflects that space correctly in terms of bringing in more people or bringing in more traffic. And so I think we have a good opportunity with our land to have 2 separate campuses, but are walkable to each other, where in the center, it's more of a municipal campus. And I start by thinking, when I think of the center of town, I think of the intersection. Like, oh, I'll see you at the center of town, intersection. You know, your mind at this day and age goes to the traffic, and it used to be called Town Square. which I think was a little better than just thinking of an intersection. So the parcel with Ritter and Primary, a lot of people have talked about the demolition of the Primary building and that could be open space or like a town green, expanded farmers markets. And in front of that is municipal parking space where if redone, a lot more cars could fit there, and you have the Historical Society. So you start to build this campus where you have a town green, the Historical Society, and then the Ritter. Now the Ritter obviously doesn't handle additions well because even the one it has isn't very attractive. But then somebody else, because like I said, I've done a lot of outreach, had the idea of where old public safety was. There's a separate building built, but they're connected by like an atrium of some sorts or a hallway. So you are consolidating and you're bringing people together, but you can reflect the architecture of the Ritter without attaching something else to it. And I think that'll help with a lot of the level issues. And the new addition gives you the chance to really address ADA compliance and all of those type of needs, so you can put people in the newest building who are accessed the most, and then figure out how to use the older space in ways that reflect like the least utilized offices. And now, when we talked about last night, the idea of, you know, the economic development of the local farmer, having a place to do that, like a town green with parking, would enhance all of that. So this addition, or the separate structure, could have like a lobby entrance that faces the municipal parking lot, and in the lobby, public restrooms, where everything beyond it isn't accessible. So you can sort of meet all these needs by creating a municipal campus using those two parcels of land. And I just feel like if you have something like that, and you can host not just band concerts, but summer concert series, parking for food trucks, this idea of using open space to also have economic development all in the site where we have this beautiful town office set of buildings that are set together. I see the potential for creating like a campus, just like when I was on the school where I said, this is a great school campus, and I'll wrap it up. But when I was on Kids Kingdom 2 weeks ago with my 4-year-old, at 2:30, the middle high school got out, and over 100 children came in our direction. The younger ones went on the playground, some went to the Boys and Girls Club, some headed towards the mini market, and you just felt that feeling of campus. Some were on their way to the library, and it feels safe and open and restrictive. And I feel like there's a real opportunity to keep them separate spaces utilizing this land. And so I see the Ritter as just a part of a municipal parcel, and where we will need to put millions into the TC Passios if we convert it. I think there are ways to take that money and mold the center of Lunenburg so you don't think of it as an intersection, but the center of Lunenburg is this municipal campus. It's like an entirely different experience. So that's sort of some of the things, you know, thinking of it not just, oh, an addition on the Ritter does feel like a hard thing to do, but maybe there's a structure where public safety was and it's connected with some sort of beautiful glass hallway. So these are, although it's not a formal charrette, we've been talking a lot because we are excited about this sort of blank canvas with the fact that there's a lot that needs to be done. And I just wanted to share that because I think if you think of the idea of building a campus like you have with the school, but having them separate, we have the best of both worlds. And I think there's a lot of opportunity at that parcel because there are a lot of restrictions here. But I think when you bring the town activity into TC Passios, you're putting a lot of things into the heart of the school campus, like traffic, that are better reflected in the center of town for accessibility with people who are trying to utilize the offices. So that's just some of, you know, it's a really flexible process, but I think there's a chance to build like a campus to enhance that experience of having a consolidated, you know, even the people who work in the buildings, they would be abutting a town green, and they'd have a big parking lot. And so it'd be a good working experience too for people who spend their whole lives working for Lunenburg. So I think there's a lot of potential in that parcel, and I've gotten really excited about it. And so I just wanted to share some of that brainstorming that we've been doing together for fun. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any public comment from the board? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.